On April 20th, 1999, an ordinary Tuesday morning at Columbine High School in Colorado spiraled into one of the most tragic and defining moments in modern American history. Two teenagers, fueled by anger and alienation, unleashed a dark plan that would forever turn their school into a symbol of fear, loss, and haunting, unanswered questions. Today, we're going to revisit that fateful day, exploring how it began, what truly unfolded minute by minute, and why its impact continues to echo across the nation. Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold were seniors at Columbine High School. From a distance, they seemed to blend into the sea of more than 1,900 students. But beneath the surface, a storm was brewing. Both boys felt deeply isolated, resentful, and profoundly disconnected from the world around them. They saw themselves as outcasts, standing apart from the jocks, the preps, and the various cliques that defined high school social life. In private journals, and even on chilling videotapes, they documented their growing rage, their contempt for society, and the meticulous details of a horrific act they were preparing. These personal records would later reveal that the tragedy was not a spontaneous burst of violence, but a meticulously planned event, months in the making. On the morning of April 20th, 1999, the school was buzzing with its usual energy. Students chatted and laughed in the hallways, teachers prepared for their classes, and the promise of a normal day hung in the air. No one could have imagined that by lunchtime, Columbine would be the center of a national crisis, broadcast live on every television screen in America. Eric and Dylan arrived on campus armed with a terrifying arsenal, including improvised explosive devices they intended to detonate in the crowded cafeteria. Their goal was to inflict mass casualties. When those bombs failed to go off, they moved to the next phase of their plan, initiating a direct assault. Suddenly, the familiar sounds of a school day were shattered by gunfire. The calm morning descended into utter confusion and raw panic. Students scrambled for cover, hiding under desks, barricading themselves in classrooms, and seeking refuge in the corners of the library. Teachers, showing incredible bravery, did everything they could to shield their students from the horror unfolding in the halls. Emergency lines were flooded with frantic 911 calls, painting a chaotic and terrifying picture of the scene inside the building. Within minutes, police and SWAT teams surrounded the school, but the situation inside remained dangerously unclear. No one on the outside fully understood the scale of the attack or where the shooters were. News stations broke away from regular programming to provide live, non-stop coverage. Viewers across the country and around the world watched in disbelief as images of terrified teenagers streamed out of the school, their hands raised in the air, their faces etched with shock and fear. Frantic parents rushed to the perimeter, desperate for any news about their children. For nearly an hour, a siege of terror consumed the entire campus. In the end, after their rampage through the school, Eric and Dylan turned their weapons on themselves in the library, ending their own lives rather than facing the consequences of their actions. When the smoke finally cleared and law enforcement secured the building, the devastating toll became clear. 13 innocent people, 12 students, and 1 teacher had lost their lives. More than 20 others were injured, some with life-altering wounds. But the numbers only tell part of the story. The psychological trauma ran far deeper. Survivors were left to grapple with nightmares, survivors' guilt, and anxiety that would follow them for decades. The families of those lost were forced to navigate a world with an unbearable emptiness, a void that could never be filled. In a single day, the deeply held belief that schools were safe havens was shattered for an entire generation of Americans. The aftermath of Columbine was immense and far-reaching. The tragedy forced a difficult and uncomfortable national conversation about bullying, mental health, and the influence of violent media and video games. In the political arena, debates over gun control laws intensified, reaching a fever pitch. Across the country, schools began implementing new security measures, clear backpacks, metal detectors, and active shooter drills, things that were once unimaginable in an educational setting. For the very first time, the term school safety became a common and urgent part of the everyday American vocabulary. Over the years, Columbine became a dark and powerful reference point. Every subsequent school tragedy was inevitably compared back to it, making it the grim benchmark for this type of violence. Even more disturbingly, Eric and Dylan became twisted icons for a small, alienated fringe of society, inspiring copycat plots and acts of violence. Instead of fading into history, the memory of Columbine became a persistent shadow hanging over American culture, a wound that is never fully healed, even more than 2 decades later. The story of Columbine is not just about one horrific day in April. It's a powerful and tragic reminder of how darkness can grow unnoticed, how critical warning signs can be missed or dismissed, and how a single desperate act can irrevocably change a community and a nation forever. It forces us to ask difficult questions. So, what do you think? Could Columbine have been prevented? And what are the most important lessons that society should have learned from this tragedy? Share your thoughts and perspectives in the comments below. If you find these deep dives into real stories, mysteries, and dark history compelling, please consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you for watching.
Subscribe for a mind rush.